My parents emptied my future to fund my sister's failures, then threw me out when I said no more. This is a true revenge story rooted in family betrayal, where success becomes the ultimate form of justice. The question is, did I go too far or not far enough? My parents drained my entire college fund to pay for my sister's failing boutique, and then kicked me out when I wouldn't sign a predatory loan to save her again. But 10 years later, standing in the boardroom as the CEO of the firm holding their eviction notice, the look on their faces told me they finally realized they bet on the wrong daughter. I remember the day my life split into two distinct timelines. The before, when I was the invisible daughter of Robert and Linda Rogers, and the after, when I became the enemy. My name is Sarah Rogers. It was a Tuesday in late August. I was 19 years old. The air was thick with the kind of humidity that makes your clothes stick to your skin, but inside our kitchen, the temperature was sub-zero. I had my acceptance letter to the state university in one hand and a bank statement in the other. The balance on the account my grandmother had started for me, the account I had contributed every paycheck to since I was 14, read 0. My mother was at the counter, chopping vegetables with a frantic, aggressive rhythm. My father was reading the newspaper, a wall of silence he often hid behind. I asked them where the money was. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I think I was in shock. I just asked where the $40,000 had gone. My mother didn't even turn around. She just said, Tiffany needed it. Tiffany, my older sister, the golden child, the girl who had been modeled in local commercials since she was 5, the girl whose smile apparently justified the cannibalization of my future. Tiffany had decided, on a whim, that she was going to be a fashion mogul. She wanted to open a high-end boutique in the most expensive district of the city. She had no business degree, no retail experience, and no work ethic. But she had a dream, and in the Rogers household, Tiffany's dreams were mandates. I remember staring at my father's back. I asked him how he could let this happen. That money wasn't just theirs to give away. A significant portion of it was wages I had earned scrubbing floors at the local diner and lifeguarding at the community pool. He finally lowered the paper. He looked at me with this exhausted, dismissive expression that I knew well. He told me that I was smart and resourceful. He said I would figure it out. He said Tiffany was fragile, that she needed a win, and that as a family, we invest in the person with the highest potential ceiling. That was the phrase that broke me, the highest potential ceiling. It was a nice way of saying they thought I was destined to be mediocre, while Tiffany was destined for stardom. They bet the house on her, literally. I didn't go to university that year. I couldn't. Instead, I went to community college at night and worked 3 jobs. I stayed in the house, but I was a ghost. I stopped eating dinner with them. I stopped sharing my day. I watched from the sidelines as Tiffany's boutique, Gilded, opened with a massive champagne-soaked party. My parents were beaming, taking photos, acting like they were the patrons of the arts. 6 months later, Gilded was shuttered. Tiffany had spent the inventory budget on personal trips to Milan and networking parties. The business collapsed. My parents lost the $40,000. But did they learn? No. They blamed the economy. They blamed the location. They blamed everyone except the incompetence of their golden child. 2 years passed. I was grinding, saving every penny, sleeping 4 hours a night. I had just been promoted to an assistant manager position at a property management firm. I was 21. I came home one evening to find my parents and Tiffany sitting in the living room. It felt like an intervention. Tiffany was crying. She always cried when she wanted money. She had a new idea, a branding agency. She just needed capital to secure an office and hire a team. She needed $50,000. My parents were tapped out. They had remortgaged the house to pay off the lease from the failed boutique. Their credit was shot. But they had a solution. They turned to me. They knew I had been working nonstop. They knew I had good credit because I was obsessive about my finances. They put a document on the coffee table. It was a loan application, a predatory, high-interest personal loan for $50,000. They wanted me to co-sign. Actually, they didn't just want me to co-sign. They wanted me to be the primary borrower with the promise that they would pay the monthly installments. I looked at the document. I looked at Tiffany, wiping away dry tears, checking her phone under the table. I looked at my parents, who were looking at me with that same expectant entitlement. I said no. The explosion was immediate. My father stood up, his face turning a shade of purple I'll never forget. He called me selfish. He called me ungrateful. He said I was hoarding money while my sister was in crisis. My mother chimed in, saying that I had always been jealous of Tiffany, that I wanted to see her fail. I tried to use logic. I told them that if they couldn't get a loan, there was a reason. I told them Tiffany had no business plan. I told them I was finally saving enough to move out and finish my degree. My father pointed to the door. He gave me an ultimatum. He said, "You sign that paper and support this family, or you get out. You are not a tenant here. You are a daughter, and daughters sacrifice." I looked at the three of them, a united front of delusion. I realized then that if I stayed, they would drain me dry until I was just as empty and broken as their bank accounts. I would never have a life of my own. I would just be the fuel for Tiffany's fire. So I went to my room, I packed 2 suitcases, I grabbed my laptop and my documents, and I walked out. My mother screamed after me that I would be back in a week. She said I couldn't survive without them. She said I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I slept in my car for 3 weeks. I showered at the gym, I ate peanut butter sandwiches, but I didn't go back. I didn't sign the loan. That was 10 years ago. The first few years were brutal, but there is a certain clarity that comes from having no safety net. When you know that falling means hitting the concrete, you learn to fly very quickly. I threw myself into real estate. I didn't just want to manage properties, I wanted to own them. I started bird-dogging deals for investors, finding distressed properties, putting them under contract, and selling the contract for a fee. I saved everything. I bought my first duplex at 23. It was a rat-infested dump, but I lived in one half and renovated the other myself. I learned plumbing, drywall, and electrical work from YouTube and old contractors who took pity on me. I refinanced, pulled out the equity, and bought a 4-plex. By 25, I had my broker's license. By 27, I started Rogers Capital. I focused on distressed debt and commercial revitalization. I had a knack for seeing value where others saw ruin. I worked 18-hour days. I didn't date. I didn't vacation. I built an empire out of spite and survival instinct. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on my family. Not through contact, I had blocked their numbers the day I left, but through public records and social media. It's amazing what you can learn from public filings. Tiffany's branding agency failed in 8 months. Then came a luxury pet grooming service. Failed. Then a crypto consulting firm. That was the big one. That was the one that really did the damage. My parents continued to enable her. They sold their cars, they cashed out their 401ks, they took out second and third mortgages. They were drowning, but they kept handing Tiffany buckets of water while she drilled holes in the bottom of their boat. Last month, my VP of Acquisitions, David, walked into my office. He's a sharp guy, but he looked hesitant. He dropped a thick file on my desk. He told me that a regional bank was looking to offload a portfolio of toxic bad debt. They wanted to clean up their books before a merger. It was a bundle of about 50 distressed mortgages and personal business loans. David said the numbers looked good for us to acquire the debt at pennies on the dollar, foreclose on the properties, and redevelop. But he said there was one specific file I needed to see because the last name matched mine. I opened the folder, and there it was. 42 Maple Drive, my childhood home. But it wasn't just the house. The debt bundle included a commercial loan for a strip mall location that Tiffany had leased for her latest venture, a holistic wellness spa. My parents had put their home up as collateral for the business loan. The business had defaulted 6 months ago. The house was in pre-foreclosure. The total debt, including penalties and interest, was nearly $2 million. The house was worth maybe $600,000. They were underwater. They were drowning. I looked at the signatures on the documents. Robert Rogers, Linda Rogers, and Tiffany Rogers. David asked me what I wanted to do. He offered to exclude that specific file from the purchase if it was a conflict of interest. I looked out the window at the skyline. I saw the reflection of the woman I had become. I wasn't the girl in the kitchen anymore. I was the CEO of a firm with assets over $50 million. I had the power. I told David to buy the entire portfolio. The acquisition took 2 weeks. Once the paperwork was signed, Rogers Capital became the legal owner of my parents' debt. We were the bank. We held the mortgage. We held the future. We sent the standard legal notices, notice of default, notice of intent to foreclose. We scheduled a meeting for the debtors to discuss settlement options. My parents didn't know who bought the debt. In these transactions, the entity is usually an LLC with a generic name. Mine is called RC Holdings. They had no idea RC stood for Rogers Capital, or more specifically, Sarah Rogers. The meeting was set for yesterday at 10 a.m. I arrived at my office early. I wore my best suit, a tailored charcoal power suit that cost more than my father's car. I sat at the head of the boardroom table. The room is impressive. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls, a view of the city, a mahogany table that stretches 20 feet. It's designed to intimidate. At 9:55, my assistant buzzed me. She said Mr. and Mrs. Rogers were here. I told her to send them in. I spun my chair around so I was facing the window when they walked in. I wanted them to see the view. I wanted them to feel the height of the fall. I heard the door open. I heard the shuffling of feet. My father's voice was raspy, older than I remembered. He said, "Hello? We're looking for the asset manager." I waited a beat. Then I slowly spun the chair around. The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavy, like the air before a tornado touches down. They looked terrible. My father was gray, hunched over. My mother looked frail, her face etched with deep lines of anxiety. They were wearing their Sunday best, but the clothes looked dated and worn. My mother gasped. Her hand went to her mouth. My father just stared, his eyes widening behind his glasses. "Sarah?" my mother whispered. It sounded like a question, like she wasn't sure if I was a hallucination. "Hello, Mother." "Hello, Father," I said. My voice was calm, steady, ice cold. "Please, sit down." They didn't move. They just stood there, processing the impossibility of the moment. The daughter they threw out like garbage was sitting in the CEO's chair of the company that owned their lives. You work here?" my father stammered. "I own here," I corrected him. "I am the CEO of Rogers Capital. RC Holdings is my subsidiary, which means I own your debt." My father collapsed into the nearest chair. He looked like he had been punched in the gut. My mother started trembling. "You bought our mortgage?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I bought a portfolio of toxic assets," I said, gesturing to the file on the table. "You were just part of the bundle, a bad investment I picked up for cents on the dollar." I saw the gears turning in their heads. I saw the shock transition into something else. Hope. Entitlement. The old familiar delusion. My mother took a step forward, a wobbly smile forming on her face. "Sarah, oh, thank God, we were so worried. We didn't know what to do. The bank has been hounding us. But this is a miracle. You can fix this. You can make it go away." I stared at her. "Make it go away?" "We're family," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I knew you would do well. I always told your father, Sarah is the smart one. She'll land on her feet." "That's not what you said," I replied. "You said I was selfish. You said I had a low ceiling. You said I was jealous of Tiffany." At the mention of Tiffany, my father looked up. "Tiffany is in a bad spot, Sarah. She tried to make this business work. She really did. But the market, it's tough." "The market didn't force her to lease a commercial space she couldn't afford," I said. "The market didn't force you to leverage your home to secure a loan for a business with no revenue model. That was you. You gambled, you lost. So, what are you saying? My father demanded, a flash of his old anger returning. You're going to hold this over us? We're your parents. We gave you life. You gave me life, and then you stole my future to fund Tiffany's delusions, I snapped. The calm facade cracked just a little. You drained my college fund. You kicked me out onto the street because I wouldn't let you drag me down into bankruptcy with you. And now, here we are. The tables haven't just turned, they've flipped. I opened the file. Let's look at the numbers. You owe $1.8 million. Your home is worth $600,000. The commercial property is worthless because Tiffany stripped the fixtures and abandoned the lease. You are insolvent. We can pay you back, my mother pleaded. Just give us time. Lower the interest. We can make payments. You haven't made a mortgage payment in 9 months, I pointed out. You're living on Social Security. Tiffany is unemployed. There is no math where you pay this back. Then what do you want? My father asked. Blood? I want the truth, I said. I leaned forward, clasping my hands on the table. I have prepared 2 documents. Option A is an eviction notice. If I sign this, the sheriff will be at your door in 72 hours. You will lose the house. You will lose everything. You will be homeless, just like I was 10 years ago. They went pale. Option B, I continued, sliding a different document across the table, is a confession. My father looked at the paper. What is this? It's a statement, I said. It details everything. How you stole my college fund, how you prioritized Tiffany at my expense, how you enabled her fraud, how you kicked me out, and most importantly, it admits that you were wrong, that you failed me, that Tiffany is not a victim, but a parasite that you fed. You want us to sign this? My mother asked, horrified. What will you do with it? If you sign it, I said, I will forgive the debt on the house. I will write it off as a loss. You can keep the house. You will live there until you die. But the house transfers to my name immediately. You will be tenants. Rent-free tenants, but tenants. And Tiffany? She is barred from the property. If she steps foot on the premises, the deal is void, and I evict you all. We can't do that, my mother cried. Tiffany has nowhere to go. Tiffany is 32 years old, I said. She can get a job. She can figure it out, just like I had to. My father read the document. His hands were shaking. You want us to humiliate ourselves. You want us to turn our backs on our daughter. I am your daughter too. I slammed my hand on the table. The sound echoed in the room. I am the daughter who worked 3 jobs. I am the daughter who built this company. I am the daughter standing between you and a cardboard box. I am asking you to choose for once in your miserable lives to bet on the reality instead of the fantasy. Choose me or choose the ruin you created for yourselves. The room fell silent again. The air conditioner hummed. My mother was weeping softly. My father looked at the paper, then at me, then at the eviction notice. He picked up the pen. Robert, you can't, my mother whispered. We have nowhere to go, Linda, he croaked. Look at this place. Look at her. She won. He signed it. He didn't look at me while he did it. He just scribbled his name with a defeated, shaky hand. Then he slid the paper to my mother. She cried for a full minute before she signed it. She looked at me with eyes full of resentment, not gratitude. She hated me for saving them because the price was their pride. I took the document. I checked the signatures. I notarized it myself with my stamp. Get out, I said. Sarah, my mother started. The deal is done, I said, turning my chair back to the window. You keep the house. The deed transfers to me tomorrow. Change the locks. If I find out Tiffany is sleeping on that couch, the sheriff comes. Do not contact me again. My assistant will handle the lease agreement. I heard them stand up. I heard the slow, shuffling walk to the door. I heard the door click shut. I sat there for a long time watching the city traffic below. I thought I would feel triumphant. I thought I would feel a surge of joy, but I didn't. I just felt tired and empty. But it was a clean kind of empty, the kind of empty you feel after you finally clear out a room full of hoarders' junk. It wasn't happy, but it was done. The fallout was immediate. Tiffany found out within hours. She banged on my office building doors until security removed her. She screamed about how I stole her inheritance, how I manipulated our senile parents. She posted long, rambling rants on Facebook about how evil I was. But then, I posted the confession. I redacted their address, but I posted the text of what they signed. I captioned it, "The cost of a college fund, $40,000. The cost of a predatory loan, $50,000. The cost of the truth, priceless. The court of public opinion is swift. Tiffany was roasted. People in our hometown who had watched her fail upwards for years finally had the receipts. She became a pariah. Last I heard, Tiffany moved 2 towns over and is working as a hostess at a chain restaurant. My parents are living in the house, but it's not theirs anymore. They are guests in my asset portfolio. Every time they turn a key in that lock, they are reminded that they live there by my mercy, not my love. I visited the house once, a few weeks later, just to inspect the property. I didn't go inside. I just parked across the street. I looked at the window of my old bedroom. I remembered the girl who used to cry herself to sleep in that room, wondering why she wasn't good enough. I wanted to go back in time and tell her that she was the lucky one. Being the golden child is a curse. It robs you of the struggle that makes you strong. Being the invisible daughter gave me the gift of hunger. I started the engine of my car. My phone buzzed with a message from my VP. Another deal was closing, another building to buy, another empire to build. I drove away, leaving 42 Maple Drive in the rearview mirror. I didn't look back. I had work to do, and for the first time in my life, I knew exactly who I was and exactly what I was worth. Some people inherit a fortune. I built mine on the debt of the people who betrayed me, and honestly, the return on investment has never been sweeter. For anyone out there being told they have a low ceiling or that they need to sacrifice for this special sibling, let them underestimate you. Let them steal your scraps. Let them kick you out. Because when you climb that mountain alone, the view from the top belongs only to you. And when they finally come knocking at your door asking for a handout, you can hand them a bill. My name is Sarah Rogers. I am the CEO of Rogers Capital, and I am finally free. Betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the people who raised you. If you believe success is the loudest form of revenge, tap like, subscribe, and stay here, because the underestimated always have the best endings.